Welcome everyone at today's webinar, Buying a Home in Rotterdam. Today's session will be recorded. You will receive an email afterwards with the video and the slides, of course. My name is Rick, and I'm a buying manager at Expat Housing Network. I'm from the Netherlands. However, I do live in Rotterdam, the most beautiful city of the Netherlands, I think. You might agree with me since you're joining this webinar and might be interested in purchasing a property in this city. I have lived in foreign countries, South Africa and Colombia during my studies. But I'm not alone today. I'm giving this webinar with my lovely colleague Ludo. Maybe you can introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, of course. My name is Ludo. I'm also a buying manager. I myself am located in the rival city of Rotterdam, I would say, in Amsterdam. Also a very beautiful city. So if you're still doubting between Rotterdam and Amsterdam, feel free to have a call with me as well so I can convince you. I will be here today to answer any questions that you might have. Pop them in the Q&A in the right corner. During the webinar, I'll be answering those questions and helping you accordingly.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. And if your questions are not answered during the webinar, we have some time at the end to cover them. It's not only me and Ludo at EHN. We have a lovely team. For example, our Brazilian Giovanna, she's working in the region of Eindhoven. Rafaela, she's all up north in the Groningen region. And of course, Ellen, we can't do the work without her. A brief introduction about EHN. First of all, we are no traditional real estate agents. Why is that? Most of us are expats, or we have lived in a foreign country ourselves. So we know what it's like to settle in a new country and how hard it can be to find a new home. We help with buying and renting. I do have to say at the moment we're not able to support with renting since it's a very competitive market. But I hope we can start doing that soon. We charge a fixed fee, so no commission. A lot of traditional real estate agents, they will charge you between 1% and 2% of the purchase price. But we at EHN, we believe that we offer the same service to someone who's purchasing a property of 300,000 to someone of 1 million. So yeah, you know upfront what you have to pay. What is our added value? Selling agents, they take our offers more seriously. Why is that? Agents, they prefer to work with other agents. We make sure everything what needs to be in your offer will be mentioned in the offer. Due to our network, we're also able to book viewings when it's sometimes no longer possible for you guys. Again, agents, they reserve some spots for their colleagues. We support by reviewing Dutch legal property documents. You might speak a little bit Dutch. However, those legal documents can be quite difficult to understand. We are there for you to make sure you know everything what you should know. Then, very important, I would say the most important part of point in the process of purchasing a property. We help you define the market value through market data. So we will look for similar properties in the same street or neighborhood, and based on that, we can see what the actual value is. But I will explain you a little bit more about this later on. We inform you about the rules and regulations. So each property has its own rules, regulations, and restrictions. And of course, you'd like to know those before you actually purchase a property. And finally, we try to make sure you don't make the same mistakes as we made. We've purchased a lot of properties throughout the years. We've been to the process of finding a property in a foreign country. So hopefully, yeah, you don't have to make the same mistakes as we have made. So what will we cover today? First, we have a short introduction. Then we'll talk a little bit about the market. So some market drivers, the topic of savings, very important. What do you actually need in order to be able to purchase a property in this market? 3 tips to win the market. And finally, we will cover everything by going over the timeline. You know me already a little bit, but I'd like to know you as well. So we can tailor the webinar a little bit towards where you are in the process. So let me see if I can. I have a poll, and maybe you can write down in the chat where you are in the process. I see a lot of people, they want to settle. Well, I think Rotterdam is a very good place to settle in the Netherlands. Of course, people want to build up some equity. All right, someone's in the search phase. Well, that's it. Let's see. I hope you will learn something today. Well, let's talk about the market. So first, let's have a look at the Netherlands in general. The average purchase price last quarter was 448,000 euros. Of course, it's very high. Prices have doubled as of 2013. You can see it on the graph as well. Back then, the average purchase price was a little bit above 200, and now we are almost at 450. So that's quite an increase. Of course, prices have been rising from 2013 on, before we had the financial crisis. So to see a decrease. I think the increase compared to last year was about 10%, and the average purchase price for new builds is even a little bit higher. It's 466,000 or 66,500. Yeah, new builds are a little bit more expensive, of course, with everything going on in the world right now. Raw materials are quite expensive, so one of the reasons that new builds are more expensive. Then if we look at the Rotterdam market, so last quarter, 2,329 properties were sold. It's an increase compared to Q1, however, a decrease compared to the year before. An interesting number. So there's more properties on the market, 1,841, plus 47% to Q1, and plus 31% compared to a year before. Why is that? Of course, we all know, I think, that the interest rates have been rising. So people, they're not really afraid, but there's more people that thought, okay, if I want to sell my property now, it is a good time. So for you guys, I think if you're interested in purchasing property, that's only a good thing. In Rotterdam, the average purchase price is 400,000 euros. That's an increase of 8.5% compared to last year. Not much of a difference compared to Q1. And of course, the price per square meter, it's more or less the same. And the average sales time is 26 days. So it's a fast moving market. But of course, I think we are all aware of that. So market drivers, what causes the price to increase? First, we have some fiscal benefits. And to start, we have the tax exemption. So the interest you pay on your mortgage is tax deductible. Next, the interest rebate. Oh, sorry, I'm confusing. So with the tax exemption, we mean, of course, the transfer tax. If you purchase a property, you have to pay transfer tax, which is 2% if you're going to live in the property yourself, and 8% if you're purchasing the property as an investment. However, if you purchase your first property and the purchase price is below 400,000 euros, and you are under the age of 35, you are exempt from paying the transfer tax. Well, let's say you purchase a property, the purchase price is 375,000 euros, you are 30 years old, and it's your first property, but your partner is 40 years old. Basically, that means that one of you has to pay the transfer tax, so you end up paying 1%. Um, if you're under 35, it's your first property, but the purchase price is above 400. Unfortunately, you do have to pay the transfer tax. Then the interest rate, I already said it. The interest you pay on your mortgage is tax deductible. No capital gains. What do we mean by that? A lot of people, they own a property for a long time. And we just saw that prices doubled over the past 10 years. So if they sell their property, of course, they've made a nice profit. But if they invest this money in a new property, you don't have to pay, or they don't have to pay any tax on that. And then finally, we have the tax-free parent donation. So if the parents are currently able to donate around 100,000 euros to their children if they are going to purchase a property. It's in between brackets that it says ending. Why is that? As of next year, this will be only limited to 30K. And as of 2024, this regulation is not applicable anymore. But yeah, of course, because all of those things, there's a lot of money in the housing market. Then I already said it in the beginning, the high rents. The rental market, I think it's even worse than the buying market. And of course, if the rents are so high, people are looking for alternatives, which is buying. And then finally, the lack of supply. And I think this is the most important factor, what causes the prices to be so high. Currently in the Netherlands, we have a shortage of 300,000 houses. And of course, there's a lot of things influencing the actual price. And one of them, and I think the most important one is, of course, the interest rate. The more expensive money is, the less money in the market. However, basic economics, supply and demand, there's just a huge shortage, which make sure the prices are not decreasing. Some other relevant topics, good to know, especially if you're purchasing a property as an investment. Since March this year, Rotterdam started the self-occupancy obligation. In 60 neighborhoods of the city, it's not able to purchase a property and rent it out. This rule is applicable for properties up and to a WOZ value of 355,000 euros. So yeah, again, if you're interested in renting it out, please make sure you check this out. Next, it's mandatory to have smoke detectors. So as of July this year, excuse me. So we already had those regulations for new builds. However, we didn't have it for existing properties. So it's good to know, be aware that you need a smoke detector on each level of your property. And then finally, the rising interest rates. So in the beginning of this year, I think the interest rates were between 1% and 2%. Well, those have been rising quite fast, as mentioned. I think at the moment, the average interest rate is between 3% and 4%. So if you if it's been a while that you have a chat with your mortgage advisor, please talk to them again to make sure you know how much you can borrow. Then the topic of savings. So what would you actually need in order to be able to purchase a property? Let's have a look at this overview. First of all, the transfer tax. So we already discussed, some of you might be exempt from this tax, but otherwise you have to pay the 2%. Next, the notary. If you purchase a property, you need to sign a mortgage deed and a transfer deed, which will be done at the notary's office. Depends a little bit on the notary, but in general, it's between 600 and 1,100 euros per deed. Good to know everything which is mortgage related can be is tax deductible. So the mortgage deed, yes. Then of course also the bank and or your mortgage broker. Depends a little bit again if you choose for your bank or a mortgage broker between 1,500 to 3,400. We always advise to at least have a chat with a mortgage advisor, since they can offer you different mortgage suppliers, where the bank can only offer a few or different types of mortgages. But that's all up to you guys. Then the typical real estate agent, as mentioned in the beginning, they will charge you between 1% and 2% of the purchase price. Again, at EHN, we charge a fixed fee. The appraiser, in order to apply for a mortgage, the bank wants to know what the actual value of the property is. So they require an appraisal report between 650 and 800 euros. Again, this one is tax deductible. Then we have the technical inspector, also very important to make sure you don't buy a red flag property, I would say. 435, the interpreter, it's between 300 and 350, 350 euros. If you don't speak the Dutch language, it's obligated to have this in order to make sure you know what you signed for at the notary. So they will translate all the deeds for you before you actually sign. Then the bank guarantee. So if you've signed the purchase agreement, one of the articles states that you need to provide a bank guarantee or a deposit equal to 10% of the purchase price. If you don't have the 10%, then it's nice to go for a bank guarantee. This will cost you around 250 euros. And then if you're able to make use of the NHG, this will cost you 0.6% of the mortgage amount. Again, tax deductible, and since it gives you a discount on your interest rate, it's beneficial. Then 3 tips to win the current market. First of all, value. Very important, and I think I can explain this best by giving you an example. So let's take this property. The asking price is 395,000 euros. The market value, we've done our research. We looked at similar properties, and we can see that the value is at least 20K or 20K higher, so 415,000 euros. It's still a quite competitive market. So in order to make a winning offer, we need to add something on top of the market value. 435,000 euros is the final purchase price. The difference between the asking price and the purchase price is 10%. But the actual difference between the market value and the purchase price is 4.8%. Well, let's say we have the same property, but a different agent. Now the asking price is 375,000 euros, but it's the same property. So the market value is still 415,000 euros, and the purchase price is 435,000 euros. Now the difference between the asking price and the purchase price is 16%. However, the difference between the market value and the purchase price is still 4.8%. So therefore, we say, please look at the market value. Based on the market value, you can draft your offers. There's no general rule that you need to overbid by 5, 10, or 15%. You need to look at the value, and then you can decide what you'd like to offer. Second tip, a winning offer. What is a winning offer? It's not always offer a good price, but that's not always the highest price. What do we mean by that? So let's say if we take the example we just had, if you offer a price which is much higher than the market value, and you include a 100% financial clause, then the sellers might think, hey, they can't finance everything with their mortgage, so we'll choose for someone else. Offer security to the seller. Of course, the seller, they want some security. So if you, for example, have a mortgage advisor and they can provide you with a letter that you're able to borrow more than the amount you use. Or if you have some savings and you don't need a 100% financing, include those kind of things in your offer. Then offer the least amount of hassle. What do we mean by that? Let's say the sellers, they are moving back to their home country and they want to get rid of the furniture. Maybe it might be interesting for you to take it over. Or if the sellers purchased a new build property, please be flexible in the transfer date. Don't demand them to deliver the property next week, so to say. And then finally, offer a personal touch. It's not a deal breaker or maker, but it can definitely be really nice to offer a personal touch to your offering, so the sellers can create see who's actually going to live in the property themselves. Sometimes the property is of emotional value to them, so they want to see who's going to be the new owner. And then tip 3, do diligence. Do your due diligence. So we have the technical inspector and the appraiser. And my question to you guys is, when do you book them? Maybe you can put it in the chat. I'd like to know what you think.
Yeah, so good to know. When do we book these? Is it before the offer gets accepted or after the offer is accepted?
Yeah, thank you, Ludo, for.
Well, it's teamwork makes the dream work here, but that I'm always curious to see what people think.
So feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. I see after, before, expected before. All right, after the bid, if you want. Oh. All right, let me give you the answer. Right after your offer is accepted, you start booking the technical inspector and the appraiser. Why is that? Of course, these people, they cost money. We saw it in the overview, I think, and you don't want to pay for them all the time. So let's say you book them and then your offer is not accepted, then that would be a waste of money, of course. But it's really important to book them as soon as possible. Why is that? You do want to know the results, preferably before you sign the purchase agreement, because maybe the value is much lower than expected, or there are some technical issues with the property. Then of course you want to either negotiate with the selling party, or you just, if you don't feel comfortable anymore, you just do not want to purchase the property anymore. So in general, after the offer acceptance, you have about 1.5 weeks in order to sign the agreement. If you're not able to get the results before signing, you still have the cool-off period. So within those 3 days, you are able to dissolve the contract without paying a penalty. But if for some reason you'd like to cancel the contract after those 3 days, you need to pay a penalty equal to 10% of the purchase price. So of course you want to avoid that. You did the inspection, you've signed, the cool-off period ends, and then you see in the report that, I don't know, there's issues with foundations, or there's a leakage in the bathroom. So please, right after the offer is accepted, you have to book those. Well, let's cover everything by going over the timeline and how we as EHN can support you during this process. In order to start the process, I would say you have to sort out your finances first. So please have a chat with a bank or a mortgage advisor. And if you guys don't have a mortgage advisor already, put your email in the chat, and we can share some mortgage advice with you guys. As mentioned, I think it's always nice to at least have a chat with them, since they can offer you a lot of different mortgages, which in the end I think better suit your needs. But if that's clear, you can start the search. So let's say you start the search and you found something interesting. You can send the property to us. We can help you with booking the viewing. We can attend the viewing with you. And then, of course, during the viewing, we ask some critical questions to the selling agents. We check the conditions of the property. But then what I always say, and I think for those who already did some viewings, the most important part is that you need to feel at home. But if that's the case, and you'd like to submit an offer, we start doing our homework. So what we'll do is a price research. We define the market value for you, and we check all the property documents. And based on that, we can draft the offer together and submit it. Then once the offer is submitted, hopefully it's accepted. And then, as mentioned, you start booking the third parties. So the appraiser, technical inspector, you wait for the results. We'll discuss everything together. If needed, we'll negotiate with the selling party again, but hopefully there's no need to do that. And then you can sign the purchase agreement. Of course, at EHN, we make sure you understand the purchase agreement, and we will review everything for you. Then right after the purchase agreement is signed, you start applying for your mortgage. It depends a little bit on your mortgage advisor and the bank, but in general, the application will be approved within 4 weeks. Of course, you have the cool-off period, but we covered this before. And once your mortgage has been approved, the final thing left to do is to sign the actual transfer deed at the notary's office. But before we sign the deeds, we go to the property once more to do a final inspection. So let's say the current owners, they broke something with moving out. Obviously, that's something you as a buyer, you don't want that. So what we'll do then is we inform the notary about this, and they will keep a certain amount in their account in order to fix this. But if everything is fine, you can sign the deeds, and you are the proud owner of your new property in Rotterdam. And then finally, you have the 2 months of a liability term. Well, at EHN, we have a few different packages. So one is the smart package, one is the complete package, and one is the new build. With the smart one, we are more like an online consult. So you will book the viewings yourself, attend the viewings yourself. And then if you're interested in making the offer, we can help you with doing the researches, submitting the offer, reviewing the contract, and sometimes the support. If you feel like, hey, I need a little bit more support, then the complete package might be something for you, since we'll be physically there for you. We'll join you to the viewings, to the notary, to the technical inspection, and of course the final inspection before the transfer. And if you're interested in new build properties, that's a different process, but we can also support you with that. Feel free to schedule an intake with us if you're interested in any of our services, or if you have any other questions about the process or the market itself. We're happy to help you guys out. Then Ludo, I think
yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing, Rick. A lot of valuable information for sure. If you guys have any questions, please still pop them in the Q&A. We'll talk about them live now. We already have a question from Orla. She asks, if a mortgage is rejected, do you actually still pay the cancellation fee? That's a very good question. So basically that depends on the condition of your offer. If you include a financial clause,
Basically, that means that if your mortgage is not approved within a certain time period, you don't have to pay this 10% penalty. But if you make an offer without this clause, then you do have to pay. So yeah, that's a very tricky thing to do. But if your mortgage advisor is certain, it might be an option for you to increase your chances of making a winning offer.
Perfect, cool. Thanks very much. Then I have a question from Xenia. Please excuse my pronunciation, by the way. What is the average bidding now? Possibly overbidding or anything like that? She's heard that the market is cooling down a bit.
Yes, the market is cooling down a little bit. Yes, that's true. And yeah, we already discussed. I think that's because the interest rates have been rising. And how do we see that? In the past, I never saw a property without a deadline. With a deadline, I mean, let's say a year ago, you could. It was really hard, first of all, to even schedule a viewing, and then let's say the selling agent, they did all the viewings this week, and then they gave you the opportunity until 11 a.m. Monday, 11 a.m. next week to make your offer. And what I see now is that selling agents and sellers are a little bit more open for negotiations. So that's something that's definitely changing. About the overbidding, it is maybe not as crazy as a year ago, but yeah, please expect still some overbidding. Yeah, that's still going on.
Perfect, thank you. Yep, very, very true. Okay. Well, I see that Xenia has said that my pronunciation was good. Perfect. Nice to read. I have a question from CL. For a new property, do we still need to bid the asking price, or do we still need to overbid? How does that work?
So, for new builds, you mean?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So for new builds, there's no overbidding. You buy from a project, and then there's fixed prices. So that's as mentioned a different process. And then, for example, there's no market value and stuff like that. So yeah, if you're interested in that, please feel free to schedule a call with us, and we can tell you everything about it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And what's good to know with new builds is actually you also don't pay transfer tax, as well, ownership doesn't transfer from someone to someone else. You're the first owner. But with new builds, you pay VAT, different kind of tax, but that is already included in the purchase price. So that's rather nice. I have a question from Iham. What happens if you're a cash buyer? Is the process any different than?
If you're a cash buyer, yeah, the process is a little bit different, I would say. I still do recommend to do a price research, of course, even though your mortgage is not, you're not depending on the market value, your mortgage. But I think it's nice to at least know what the actual value is. Sometimes you see properties which are listed way below the actual value. Others are listed close to the value. So definitely something I'd recommend you to do. And then, of course, after the offer is accepted, there's some differences. Normally, if you're purchasing with a mortgage, then you need to some time to arrange your finances. Well, if you have cash, everything the transfer can happen a little bit sooner. But apart from that, there's not much of a difference.
Oh, indeed, still rather the same. Okay, then a question from Tanya. What's the best season for buyers? Winter, summer, or if there even is a difference?
Yeah, a good question. Yes, there is a difference, not in terms of value, but in terms of competition and how many properties there are available on the market. For example, in the summer, we saw that there were not that many properties available. People are on a holiday, they take a break, or they postpone the process. And now you see that everything starts rolling again. I don't know if you experience the same, Ludo.
Yeah, indeed. So what you see in the summer, not a lot of people are listing their properties, so there's a little bit less offer on the market. Same goes for buyers. A lot of buyers, they put their process on hold in the summer. We see the same in the winter. Not a lot of people want to move out in the Christmas weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit slower there. I would say generally, so now, for example, September, but also October, November, it's going to be, I think, a lot of transactions happening. Same goes for end of January, beginning February, up to May, something like that. That were the hot months where a lot of transactions are happening and a lot of offers on the market.
Yeah, totally agree.
Okay, then a question from Kuloa. Is Funda the best site to look out for properties?
Yes, I would say it is. Basically, every property is listed on Funda. Of course, there's other websites like Terrarius, but in general, every property is listed on Funda.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, then another question from Xenia. If you buy a house, can you rent out one of the rooms while you still live in the property?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you purchase a property to rent it out, then you need permission from your bank. So often that requires a different mortgage, an investor's mortgage. But a room, yes, you can rent it out. That's no problem. So that might be interesting.
Indeed, renting out. Good to know those. If you're renting out part of your house, the income that you get from that part is not or is taxed. While if you're renting out your entire home, it's pretty much not taxed. We always advise you, if you are going to rent out a room or part of your property, do draft up a very good agreement with your tenant or with your roommate in that case, as tenants get tenant rights very quickly in the Netherlands. And when a tenant has tenant rights, it's pretty much impossible to kick them out of your house. So if at one point you want to sell your property and the tenant is like, or your roommate is like, screw you, I'm not leaving, then you have to sell the house with a roommate in it or with a tenant in it, and property will be valued a lot less.
Yeah.
Okay, a question from SB that it correlates a bit with the question we had before. What if you want to rent out your entire property after a few years? Does that also impact the interest rate or anything like that? I think you touched base on it already a little bit.
Yeah. So as mentioned, you need permission from the bank, and often it's not allowed to rent it out with a residential mortgage. So you need to change your mortgage from a residential mortgage to an investor's mortgage. And yes, the interest rates for those mortgages are a little bit higher. And good to know is that with a residential mortgage, you can finance 100% of the market value. Where with the investor's mortgage, you can finance, I think around 70, max 80% of the value of the property. So that is something you have to keep in mind.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and what is nice is if you buy it now, I'm just going to say a random number, but buy it now for 400K, then you live in it for 4 or 5 years, then want to rent it out. You change to a investment mortgage. Yes, the interest rates are going up, but normally you would have to put a down payment of 30% of the property yourself. But now the value has gone up, let's say to 450. Then if you get 70% of the value as a mortgage, then you still don't have to put down a big lump of money yourself. So that can be quite interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. A question from Sahil: is the tax exemption on the asking price or the purchase price in regards to the 400K threshold?
Yeah, good question. So it's on the purchase price. So not the asking price, unfortunately.
It's the amounts that you'll put down or pay the sellers in totality. Okay, well, I think that is all the questions we've had for today. If people do have any outstanding questions, they can always contact you or contact me. for a one-on-one conversation. Thanks very much, Rick, for leading today.
Yes, sure. Thank you for supporting. Yeah, as you mentioned, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And we're happy to support you.
Nice. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.